All rise, please, as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin tonight with public audience. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board? Yes.
General Public 26 Clifton Drive. I recently had an opportunity to sit in on a meeting of all groups that are required to receive approval of the town's gathering permit. It appeared that the volunteers were clueless as to the requirements of approval of the gathering permit process. There was discussion from the health district about the need to provide proper food preparation when distributing food to large groups of people. It appears that the food had to be tossed because it was spoiled during Septemberfest. The health district sends a staff member to all events that sells or distributes food at a great cost to the health district to oversee these events. They should be reimbursed for their time. There was discussion about the St. Mary's Carnival not having on-site water during the event. There was concern about food vendors not having appropriate permits. There was also discussion about serious issues relating to the triathlon that were not addressed for public safety, tents, and food preparation. With the increase in events requiring public safety, the police department is being stretched to the limit. Tom Vincent, manager of the Performing Arts, stated that Willie Nelson will be signed for a contract at the same date of the high school graduation if there are more snow days. It appears to me that the PAC is a private organization using town facilities that was constructed with taxpayers' money, and town events should have first preference. There have been many discussions that Willie Nelson concert is synonymous with marijuana use. How can our small police department enforce the marijuana laws? Are people going to get high from secondary smoke? Does the police department have to rent a trailer to process the illegal use of marijuana? How can this concert be approved at $154 for a lawn ticket at a Simsbury event? The fee schedule for events should be reviewed since the cost of using the taxpayers' property is below the cost of other towns. The taxpayer should not pay for resources used by out-of-town associations. Imputed costs should be added to all events paid by the association asking to use our resources. Since Mr. Toner, Director of Recreation and staff, is now assigned to review and approve gathering permits, staff time spent for review of the process should be paid by the event planner on an hourly basis. With the approval of distribution of marijuana in Canton and the approval of the marijuana factory at 100 Gristmill Road, the Farmington Valley has become the marijuana capital of Connecticut. This factory is situated next to an upscale rental community and the high school. With the increase in distribution of marijuana next to the high school, Simsbury High School could have a new meaning. We are told that the Simsbury factory will have 24/7 security. Do the residents of Simsbury want to have assault weapons in clear sight of a residential community? These pictures are from CNBC investigation, Cannabis, from crackdown to corporate profits. Quote, this shows the security guards with assault weapons. Cannabis from crackdown to corporate profit. Show the security guards with assault weapons in full sight. Is this the character of Simsbury? According to reports, quote, Colorado expects to take in $184 million in tax revenue from marijuana in the first 18 months after legislation, and much of that money will be funneled into teaching kids to stay away from the pot. The committee projects revenue of about $610 million from retail and medical marijuana from January 1st of this year to June 30th, 2015, the end of the next fiscal year. The committee released a request to allocate $103.5 million towards the following causes: $45.5 million for the prevention of youth marijuana use, $40.4 million for treatment of substance abuse, $12.4 million for public health, $1.8 million for regulatory oversight, $3.2 million for law enforcement and public safety, and $200,000 for something called, quote, statewide coordination. It appears that the increased use of marijuana will make lots of money for political operatives and will not only dummy down the people using the mind-altering substance, but increase the need for mental health. Presently, there is a committee being formed to discuss mental health issues. This is certainly very timely, since there will be an increase of marijuana use, with applications for marijuana use increasing. Simsbury increases marijuana use, and then First Selectman Mary Glassman institutes a committee to fix the mental health and drug addiction issues surrounding the drug. How hypocritical can you get? Since First Selectman Mary Glassman has used marijuana as an innovative process to increase the tax base, I would suggest that we use the Hartford Financial Services building with 640,000 square foot office building and more than 100 acres of property as a mental health institution to provide mental health counseling and treatment for families and individuals with the increased use of marijuana and other mental health issues. Are the Meadowood developers going to apply for a zoning change in order to grow marijuana on their property? I would urge these boards to reject the recommendation submitted by the golf lobby on their fee schedule, since they have a loss of $255,000 that will have to be paid with taxpayer money from the general fund. At the last meeting, State Representative John Hampton stated his new address was 33 Canal Street. It appears from town records that this building is illegal under the zoning regulations, and all applications to change the R15 residential zone to another zone was denied 3 times over the years. This is the same issue I had when Tom Vincent's wife owned and lived in her house on 499 Hop Meadow Street. When she moved out of the house was no longer to continue in the building, the office was no longer to continue in the building, and she had to move her practice. This is the same issue with the medical practice and additional rooms at 33, Canal Street. Where the owner of the practice does not live in the house, a violation. This is not the first time State Representative John Hampton has lived in an illegal residence. I would suggest that this issue be resolved immediately. The requirements to adhere to the zoning regulations should be applied to everyone, and violations should be addressed immediately. I am also concerned that State Representative John Hampton has not paid any taxes this year to the town of Simsbury. How can he represent the taxpayers in that town when he doesn't pay taxes to the town? I've had a discussion with people involved with the Big Y issues. It appears that the ball is now in Big Y's court, and all documents have been thoroughly vetted. I have been following the implementation of Common Core Initiative and the letters to the editor and op-eds discussing the stringent standards that the teachers and administrators are to apply. Many initiatives are implemented without any training, leading to failures on all fronts. However, it took one teacher to write an op-ed, quote, "Why I want to give up teaching," end quote, to get other teachers and superintendents to express their concerns publicly. Because of one teacher's expression of concern politically, others have begun to follow in the dialogue, and changes will be made. It just shows that one person can make a difference. And I'll post my comments on www.simsbury.com and Simsbury Patch.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to address the board? Yes.
Oh, please. Good. And here's the assault.
If I could just ask, I know we had a request to go, so Mrs. Zielinski can go home. So why don't you go ahead? Would you mind, Mrs. Nash, if I let her go? She's not feeling well.
I'll be very brief.
Thank you for your...
I'm not contagious. It's just asthma.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Simsbury is outstanding as far as their meetings and their committees and all the work, the volunteer work that people do. You don't realize how it doesn't happen in other communities this way. So we are so fortunate. Every chance I get, I'm going to speak about Aquarian and the research I've done. Any errors are entirely mine. I apologize if I offend anybody, but I'm going to continue to do the research. My objectives are to prevent statutes, dockets, facts, and articles to the Board of Selectmen, Pura, and other officials and agencies as appropriate. I would also encourage the Board of Selectmen to contact other communities in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire to share information as appropriate. I'm not able to do this as a private citizen because of confidentiality. Hingham, Massachusetts has done extensive research on the economic feasibility to purchase their water company back. All the figures point to saving millions over 20 years. I've given you the documents. Hingham's studies reinforce what I have presented in the past at hearings, meetings, and emails. Aquarian water companies actually costing us more money because they have to satisfy investors' return on equity and enormous executive bonuses. As Aquarian continues to fund acquisitions through low-interest bonds while making minimal investments in infrastructure improvements, I will lobby the legislature, PURA, and the governor for a moratorium on further acquisitions. I don't know how to do this. God help me. I will share all findings by email with all persons and agencies appropriate to this concern. This spring and later this fall, I will lobby the legislature as a private citizen for laws that protect Connecticut's natural resources and to prevent profiteering from foreign-owned entities. This also includes the MDC, who has worked its will on other communities. Please watch the news. Finally, Hingham, Massachusetts filed a suit in Suffolk County Superior Court, July 2013, in the business litigation section. I am unable to access more information on this as a private citizen. Please contact Mr. Alexades, who is Hingham's head person, to obtain information, because I'm sure, he'll talk to you. And I will watch the news. Watch other communities in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, and find alliances to help you make your work easier. And I didn't give copies, but because finances are, but just pointing out, on January 30th of this year, Attorney General Jepson and Consumer Counsel Ellen Katz filed a petition for a proposal to fund to get an accounting firm who will study the millions of dollars of rebates that utilities are getting due to the tax restructuring. And consumers, it's the consumers' money. Also, that they didn't make the water, but they're selling it back to us at a pretty high price. Also, I would point out to you docket 808-0116, petition of then Attorney General Richard Blumenthal, now a state senator, to make standardized disclosure of all utility executive and officers' compensation. Also, I would just relate that Aquarian Water Company filed a restraining order so that nobody will get to know how many millions they're getting back in tax rebates, and I find that offensive. Thank you very much.
And if we could just have your name for the record,
Oh,
Mrs. Delinsky.
I always forget. Barbara Delinsky, 56 Library Lane.
Thank you.
If anybody can help me to become an old lady lobbyist at the legislature, I'm not getting paid for it. I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do. I'll bring my cane.
Thank you for all your hard work. Anyone else? Oh, I'm now Diane, please. I apologize for the delay, but thank you for accommodating.
Diane Nash, 5 Marywood. First, I agree with Joan, Barbara, and everybody that comes to the Selectmen's meeting. For the last couple of years, I have, because of health issues, frankly, not been that involved with town work. And it is individuals who take up the charge to help you each do your job, because there's no way this can be done without a town being involved and the volunteers and individuals speaking up to an issue. So my reason for being here tonight is last February 12th, the last Selectmen's meeting. I was in attendance when the votes were taken about the naming policy. And before I listened to or read anything in the paper about what political aspects governed your decisions or not decisions, that night I went home and wrote a letter to each of our selectmen. And I wanted to read it tonight in public audience because it is simply my interpretation of what I heard going on at that meeting. So I'll read that and then comment on one other thing that came, because I thank the selectmen for getting back to me on my comments. Dear Selectmen, it took a great deal of political fortitude to stay focused tonight on the shortcomings of a policy without disparaging the efforts of the person brought forth under the flawed policy. Mary Glassman stated, probably correctly, that this policy was put in place to add guidelines to some arbitrary naming formula. Unfortunately, the policy seems to have encouraged the naming of public streets or buildings as a way of honoring public servants or volunteers. Unfortunate, because the only way to stop the process is to vote against the nominee. Much of the town's business is done without much comment, because for the most part our elected officials foresee the ramifications of new policies or approvals. Had the opinions available to the zoning commission for the medical marijuana facility been fully publicized, I suspect the public turnout and vote would have been different. But that's an aside to this discussion. When Mall Way became Jim Gallagher Way, the policy ramifications only then dawned. And many people who saw the sign for the first time were totally unaware that this was even an option to change the name of a street. In the absence of a policy, it's very doubtful that anyone would have come forward with a proposal to name a public building as a way of honoring someone, no matter how noteworthy that person has been. The flawed policy has now encouraged nominations, resulting in a discussion on the worthiness of the nominee rather than the worthiness of the policy. Nancy Hosse's ambivalence was perfectly understood by me. We had a bad policy. The policy brought forth a very good nominee, but the only way to deal with it was to vote against the nominee or to vote for the nominee. So Nancy took the stand of bad policy, but it's in place, so I'll vote for the nominee. Mary and Lisa obviously felt the policy is an okay one, and the nominee certainly was deserving. And Cheryl and Sean and Mike said, this is a way to close the Pandora's box. We've got to vote against the nominee. And it's unfortunate, and I wish that you could maybe send a letter of apology to the nominee, because certainly it was heartfelt what he has done, and there needs to be a way, I think, of honoring him over there, and whether it's with a plaque or some other recognition, I would like you to consider that. But what I really hope you do, and that's why I think if the public comes and speaks in public audience and takes your time, we have an obligation to come up with suggestions, not just tell you we don't agree with you. I think we need a moratorium on this naming policy. And I'm even more concerned, and basically that was the end of my letter to the selectmen. But because you were kind enough to respond back to me, I wanted to say even more so, I think there needs to be a moratorium on the naming policy, because two of us selectmen mentioned the naming policy as a fundraising opportunity. And Lisa specifically mentioned maybe the new senior center. Suddenly the idea of being able to fund something because we'll name it for the highest bidder. I have been on many of fundraising committees, and the only time that I've ever seen naming a facility for a person for a dollar contribution comes if it comes with a endowment that allows you to maintain the building, the facility, the medical center, whether it's the Helen Harry Gray Cancer Center, that has a funding that goes with it that keeps it in operation. To build a new building because someone gives you a certain amount of money and then the town is sitting there having to maintain it, and particularly on the senior center, I think it can change our direction of what is appropriate for this, whether we need a new senior center building or we're going to utilize what we currently have. And I wouldn't want fundraising as a possibility to cloud that issue of judgment. So I thank you, and I hope tonight you will take up the moratorium on the naming policy and put some parameters on it. The person has to be dead for X number of years. Otherwise, it's going to smack of political and popularity issues.
Thank
So
you.
thanks for your time.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Robert Callishman, Simsbury. I find it distressing. I go out of my way to come here. My wife goes out of her way to dress out of respect to this committee to come here. And we come to the door and we're locked out. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it.
Front door, Mr. Kalishman?
Yes, the
Front
front
door
door.
here.
And then when I went down to the lower level, to the police department, where they have access to the upper level, I was more or less, we're not going to let you in.
Well, I
No,
will fix
our-
that.
no,
My apologies.
well,
And no, other people
The
who got
blame
it earlier.
belongs right with you.
And I accept it, and I say,
Well,
we'll make
And
sure
I
that-
won't say anything more.
I just wanted
Let's
to let you
stop it
know.
and let's not let it.
Not directed to you. The doors should be open. Other folks coming in had no problem, and I appreciate you calling this to our attention.
Madam First Selectwoman, this is not the first time this has happened.
This is the first time you've told me, so the first time I'm aware of it, but we'll make sure the doors remain unlocked during the meetings. And I appreciate your bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I'm here to more or less, let's get back to the naming, right? If my memory takes me right, we go back a month, maybe a month and a half, all the members were seated here, and Mr. Ryan came to the podium, unbeknownst to the audience, unbeknownst to the town, unbeknownst to anybody. And he came out and he whipped out a paper and he said he's nominating Mr. Gallagher for to replace the name of, was some way over there by Dr. Odlum's place and the yogurt place and Dr. Robbins, God rest his soul, his driveway was there, and he wanted to name it Gallagher's Way or whatever it's named now, right? He was set here, right? You, Madam First Selectwoman, because he's a Democrat, because he's a past Democratic chairman, did not challenge him. At that time, I didn't hear any discussion. We want to discuss this name. We think it's improper the way it's being proposed. Because of his connection to you, it was allowed to happen. And right at the meeting, right after he finished, you took the thing and you said to your colleagues on the board, who's going to give us a motion? And I forget, I'll have to go to the minutes to find out who made the motion and go to the minutes to see who seconded the motion. But that's non-germane. There was no argument about everybody wants it or nobody wants it. It was accepted and it was voted on. 2 weeks later, we come down, and here we have another, Mr. Toner brings in a nominee, and you nominate the thing. We have a public hearing, and you insult us by saying everybody's in agreement to this when you spoke to Miss Hansey and Miss Cook, and you said everybody's in agreement to it. Why do we have to even discuss it anymore? You knew fully well that I was against it. You knew fully well that Ms. Cole was against it. But in your way of propagandizing everything you do, you seem to put everything aside. And it's not right. If people are against it, you should say they're against it. But to say everybody wanted it, everybody didn't want it. And, if you want to debate it, we don't even have to debate it. Just go down, if the tape hasn't been destroyed, to the cable company, run the minutes, the meeting, and you'll see it for yourself. I don't have to take an oath that I said it or you said it. It's right there on the tape. Now, after said that, I was going through the paper, and here I see free children's eye screening offered. A little thing there, right? Not half of the notices we get out of your press secretary, Mr. Rondinone. And to mention that, no, you laugh. It's not funny.
He works for the
because
Hartford
when
Courant
I
District
go to and I read about the pot or the marijuana in Canton, and I see the articles in the paper, I didn't see any type of article before the board met on the marijuana, the zoning board met on the marijuana. I didn't see those type of articles in the paper. I didn't see any publicity. But getting back to this, free children's eye clinic screening. The screening will take place on February 6th, it's redundant, from 4 to 6 in the Simsbury Masonic Lodge on 991 Hot Meadow Street, that's down here. Last year, the Lions Club screened about 380 children. 42 of them were referred to eye doctors for further testing. The club said in a statement, for more information, right? I don't see anybody coming forward and saying, let's name it Lions Club Way, an organization that's been preventing people from going blind for years and years and years. I don't see any of that. The only thing I see is political gamemanship. Mr. Ryan gets up and he wants to politically nominate a person. And getting back to the marijuana, here we have the marijuana, no publicity. It was incumbent upon this board, it was incumbent upon the first selectman to have a hearing. You didn't pay any attention to it. Was it because Mr. Ryan, in my opinion, was pushing this? Was it because Mr. Malloy was pushing it? Was it because it was coming from Bobby Berenbaum in Greenwich? We had no hearing, and now we're suffering the aftermath of it. Everybody's calling up, they want to do something. People have been calling me up. I called, and there's no retort. If I wanted to oppose it, I had to oppose it 2 weeks ago, and I had to take it upon my own to take it to the Superior Court. And I'm not an officer of the court, so I'd have to pay somebody who was an officer of the court to appear in the court and say to the court, we want to appeal this marijuana law. There's not one thing that's been done about it. And people are calling me, they're upset. They don't want it. And yet, you didn't call. It was incumbent upon the first selectman, as the head of the Board of Selectmen, to ask to have this thing. And I have the minutes here, and here we are, and here we are. At the minutes, the people came in, and the zoning board, right, the zoning officers said, you want to cut down 70 trees? We give you permission to cut down 70 trees. And they gave them permission to cut down 70 trees. But you and I know, Madam First Select Woman, that the tree warden is the only person in town that can say, go ahead and cut down a tree. And that was resolved at your meeting by your appointment. And the tree warden for this community is Mr. Roy. But the point I'm trying to make here is the fact that what we have is we have a zoning board that's running out of control. Anything they want to do, they're doing. And I know they're elected, but they should have some kind of direction from the town, because they're elected. Do they have more power than the first selectman or the Board of Selectmen? Then if they do, why don't you just go home and let the the zoning board run the town? Let Mr. Ryan run the town.
If you could summarize, Mr. Couchman, I've given you more than 5 minutes. So out of respect for other speakers,
right,
I would like to
okay.
move on.
And that's the thing of it, is the fact that
Thank you.
we have people that I just want to point one other thing
Thank
to
you.
you.
Yes.
Now,
We have
the
another
other thing I
speaker.
want to.
I do have other speakers. so
Okay, you
thank
do
very
it.
much.
Thank you.
Yes.
If I had this kind of question against me, I want to get rid of me too.
You've had 8 minutes.
You're totally unfair to this town.
Thank you. Yes, well. Yes, we have other speakers. Thank you.
Stupanarzik, 119 East Weetock Street. So I'd like to come in and talk about big surprise land use tonight. What a shock for everyone. So across the street from me, there was a historic district meeting that initially, when they had the first meeting, we were notified. And then the meeting didn't happen because there wasn't a quorum. So then we were supposed to be re-notified to go to the meeting that happened last week, so we weren't re-notified. So a meeting happened, we didn't know about it. In addition, there should be some things that are being kicked back to the Planning Commission that weren't dealt with for this particular subdivision, and we don't know when that's going to be. So my neighbor and I were in correspondence today because we found out that the meeting already happened without us knowing about it last week, and we wanted to go to the meeting. But in keeping with the true Howard Beach way, we weren't notified. So now we don't know what the decision is or anything. So in addition to all the other stuff that I'm dealing with this. So secondly, you're right, Mr. Kalishman, the zoning board is out of control. And they're supposed to be responsive to the people. And the people are supposed to be told when meetings are. And I do think that Diane Ash is right. I do think that there probably would have been a different outcome if people had actually known that that was going on at the meeting. And in the past, when I was on planning, we used to, if something was really important, we'd make sure it got into the paper. So as much as Mary could have done it, the zoning commission should have done it. And they should have put in a press release and gotten it printed so that people understood and knew what was going on. So the fact that it didn't get in the paper is not, sadly, a surprise to me, because we used to be really into trying to notify people and tell them what was going on with various things, but we don't do that anymore. So basically, I guess I'd like to know when the meeting's going to be held for going back to the to go back to the Planning Commission, along with my neighbor, and we'd also know, and my other neighbor wasn't notified either. We're both, the one neighbor I'm talking about is not in the proximity, but the other neighbor is in the proximity of the property. And again, I would just like to know when all of the stuff is going to be resolved, because the other day when we had the melting, there was a lot of drainage problems, and I didn't take pictures then, but I'm going to know that now I'm going to have plenty of opportunity to do that, so I will be taking movies or pictures of it to make sure that it gets dealt with. So truly, my life is exhausting right now. I'm dealing with a lot of stuff, and I don't need another thing to have to deal with. So if that could get resolved at some point, I mean, maybe my neighbor and I can come in and sit down and try to figure out exactly when all this is going to go on, but I don't want to find out after the meeting that there was a meeting, because it's just frustrating as anything to not receive notice, especially when it's right across the street. So we had, like, when you receive it the first time, you're supposed to receive it the second time as well if the meeting has been canceled. So in any event, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight.
I'll find out soon, I will get back to you. Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to address the board? Okay. Thank you all for your comments. We'll move now on to the agenda items. Just want to give a brief first Selectmen report. Want to give the public and the board an update on the salt supplies given our storm season. On February 13th, Governor Malloy declared a state of emergency to address a growing salt shortage in the state. The unusually high number of winter weather events has depleted salt supplies throughout the state, and many towns have exhausted their salt and overtime budgets. To date in Simsbury, we have had 48 call-outs, which we have required salt applications of various quantities, including 13 call-outs in February, and we know February is a short month. Director of Public Works Tom Roy and his staff have made the necessary arrangements to make sure that we do not run out of salt. So we have not run out of salt and will not. We remain in a good position to keep our streets safe for our residents. While our overtime budgets are getting exhausted, we currently have salt on hand for another storm if necessary, and more salt is on its way. We also have a stockpile of sand, and so we do have an alternate application process should salt supplies dwindle. I would like to personally thank our Public Works Department, including Tom Roy, for their excellent work during an extremely challenging winter and for planning proactively to keep our residents safe. The Simsbury Friends would like to invite all to attend an evening with author B.A. Shapiro at the Simsbury Public Library on March 13th at 7 p.m. Miss Shapiro's latest novel, The Art Forger, was inspired by an actual crime, and many of you might remember. In March 1990, two thieves made off with $500 million worth of art from Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. The works were never recovered, making this the largest art heist in history. Come hear more about the book from Ms. Shapiro. The New York Times Book Review says she takes the reader through Boston's art world and the logistics of forgery. Our social service department is hard at work. Our department has partnered with Food Share to provide additional resources for our residents. The Simsbury Social Service Department is partnering with Food Share to offer supplemental nutrition assistance program known as SNAP, eligibility screening and applications assistance. We have identified that 46% of Simsbury residents who are eligible for SNAP have not applied for the program. So we know you're out there. We know this program is confidential and that you are eligible for a program that might help. By having Food Share volunteers available right in Simsbury, we hope that more Simsbury residents will apply for and receive the food assistance they need. Simsbury residents can apply for SNAP at Eno Hall on the second and fourth Fridays of the month from 9 a.m. to noon. You can call the Social Services Department confidentially at 658-3283 for further information or how to schedule an appointment. And we look forward to helping our residents during a very difficult winter. And finally, an update on the Hartford Insurance Group. Gateway Planning presented the draft code for the Hartford property, and the final comments are due February 28th, 2014. This is on February 18th, the Gateway Planning came back. They're the consultant for the Hartford property land use work. They've came back to Simsbury to discuss the status and work on the Hartford's campus. The evening meeting at the library reviewed how the code is progressing to date, and the public was invited to ask questions and submit comments on the draft code as soon as possible. Gateway also met with town staff, discussed the new draft code zoning regulations with the real estate broker and consultants for the Hartford on that day as well. All comments are to be submitted by February 28th, 2014, in order to be considered for inclusion in the final code. If you would like to submit comments, you can contact Hiram Peck at 658-3228, and the complete draft code and 4 graphics are available on the town's website at www.simsbury-ct.gov. After review by the Hartford, the final code will be finished the first week of March and submitted to the land use commissions to begin the statutorily required referrals, public hearing, and adoption process. And as we know, under our form of government, the Board of Selectmen does not have any authority over the regulations. All regulations must be approved by the land use commissions, but the public is certainly welcome to comment. Thank you. We'll move on to our action items. The first is a proclamation making April 2014 Fair Housing Month. I want to welcome Ed LaMontagne, who's here this evening from the Housing Authority. Thank you, Ed, for all of your hard work and for what you do to make sure that housing is available for our residents and for those who need fair housing. 2014 is the 46th anniversary of the passage of the Federal Fair Housing Act, and the Simsbury Housing Authority wants to recognize that milestone by requesting that the Board of Selectmen approve 2014 as Fair Housing Month. Lisa, why don't you read the proclamation to the record, and we'll ask Ed if he would like to make any comments.
Proclamation. Whereas the year 2014 marks the 46th anniversary of the passage of the Federal Fair Housing Act, Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, and whereas this law guarantees that housing throughout the United States should be made available to all citizens without regard to race, color, religion, sex, family status, disability, or national origin, and whereas equality of opportunity for all is a fundamental policy of this nation, state, and city, and whereas barriers which diminish the rights and limit the options of any citizen will ultimately diminish the rights of all citizens, and whereas the cooperation, commitment, and support of all residents of the town of Simsbury is necessary to removing barriers to the enjoyment of living where one chooses within one's means. Now, therefore, I, Mary A. Glassman, First Selectman of the town of Simsbury, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2014 as Fair Housing Month, and request and encourage every citizen and business of our community to support and endorse fair housing, to reaffirm their commitment to fair housing for all, and wholeheartedly recognize these rights and responsibilities throughout the year. In witness thereof, I have placed my seal and the Great Seal of the town of Simsbury, dated the 24th day of February 2014, Mary A. Glassman.
Thank you, Lisa. Ed, thank you for being here this evening and bringing forward this proclamation. I didn't know if you wanted to comment.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Probably something we'll be back in the year to do because it is an important act. So appreciate your all of your support and this. Thank you.
Thank you, and good luck with the Small Cities Grant. I know you're hard at work,
We are.
and that'll keep you busy for a while.
Thank you.
Good luck with that. Next item is approving the tax refunds. We have an amount of $633.08, and these have been reviewed and are recommended by a tax collector. Any questions? Can I have a motion to approve?
Move that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I want to give the board an update on the Board of Selectmen process and the budget process. If you'll recall, the Board of Selectmen has set Thursday, February 27th, Friday, February 28th, and Saturday, March 1st for our budget workshops. I did want to report that as we head into the fiscal year 2014-15 budget season, there is both good news and bad news to report. And the board will be receiving my budget on Thursday. First, the good news. We'll start with the good news first. The town's economic development efforts, such as updating the form-based code regulations, the marketing study that the town completed, and the streamlined administrative support from our town staff. We have seen a meaningful grand list growth for the first time in 5 years since 2009, so that's certainly good news. The increases in the town's real estate, personal property, and motor vehicle totals have increased the taxable grand list by $13,418,173, bringing $173, bringing more tax revenue to our town next year. Second, the town's unique partnership with the Hartford is providing stability and opportunity. The Hartford has extended their commitment to the town for next fiscal year as we work through some exciting new form-based regulations that will help us attract new economic development opportunities for the future. And third, years of effort by the town and the Board of Education working with our employees to consolidate health care under one health care carrier. The town currently has 2 health care carriers, will save the town more than $600,000 next year. So that will be good news as we go into our budget process. Unfortunately, the efforts that the town has done by streamlining our budgets and reducing our budgets over the last 6 years has not been enough to lower taxes or free salaries in Simsbury, taxes in Simsbury. Given the town's budget is only 1/4 of the total budget, and the Board of Finance, not the Board of Selectmen, sets the mill rate, I have asked the Board of Finance not to raise taxes this year. So as we go into the budget process, I've told the Board of Finance that we really need to freeze taxes for sending a strong message to our residents and to our businesses that we want to keep them in our community and that we're serious about having them not relocate. The budget that the Board of Selectmen will receive on Thursday will show 3 options for the town budget, which will work within the Board of Finance guidelines to hold taxes and not raise them. The Board of Finance has asked the Board of Selectmen to show a 0 budget, a 1% budget, and a budget with minimal increases to report what the town needs. The Board of Selectmen will receive those budgets on Thursday, and there'll be some very difficult choices that will have to be made going forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions of the board, and I encourage our residents to be involved in the budget process. Lisa.
Mary, in the past, we've put our budget information online, and I just wanted to confirm that was something you initiated. The town had never done that, and I presume we'll be doing that this year.
Yes, we want to make sure that our budget is very transparent. We're one of the first towns to put our budget online, and it will again be online once it's released on Thursday. So, thank you, Lisa, for pointing that out. Any other questions?
So for Thursday, we're just going to obviously begin the process because we're going to get the budget books at 5:30, and then we're going to start discussing.
That's right.
So we're not making any decisions.
No,
on Thursday, right?
and that the way the process, I know some folks are new, and obviously this is much earlier than the charter requires that the budgets be submitted March 1st, but we're submitting it early, so we're actually getting a jump on the process, which I think will be helpful. We will go do an overview of the budget for the board and give a couple of departments an opportunity just to go through their board. So I think it'll be very helpful for the board to do an overview without feeling pressure to make any decisions. That's works very well. Also gives the public an opportunity to hear the budget presentations and to make recommendations for additions or deletions. So you're right, Sean. It's a good time just to step back and really look at the overview before we really dive into any decisions.
Okay. Yeah, that's how we've done it in the past. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, I think it's important this year, though, for the first time, I've had a discussion with the Board of Finance. We don't set the mill rate. The Board of Selectmen budget we've reduced the budget. We've been at 0, we've been under 0, and yet the mill rate, is not within our control. So I think if this board's going to comment on the mill rate, then we have to set an example on how we want to set it. So I think this is the first time we've had that dialogue with the Board of Finance, and I think it's very encouraging.
Okay.
Questions?
Excuse me, Mary. I've got a question.
Yes.
I think our first action, the item A, I don't think we took a vote on it.
We don't need to vote on proclamation, no.
Okay.
But thank you, Mike, for pointing
Thank
that
you
out.
for clarifying
Yeah.
that.
Any other questions on the budget? Okay. Get ready to work. There you go. Next item is to review and discuss a waiver of $700 fee for the Sunshine Kids event at Eno Hall. This is brought forward by Jan Marsh, who's here this evening, the mortgage broker with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. They'll be holding a fundraiser at Eno, and it'll be Saturday from 6 to 10, and they want to raise money for children with cancer. So Jan, welcome, and I didn't know if you wanted to address the board or answer any questions.
Sure, just for a minute, I'd like to just present our cause. So good evening, First Selectman Mary Glassman, and to all the members of the board. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity to present our cause to you. My name is Jan Marsh, and on behalf of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to speak in front of the board. We have proposed to present the play, Shirley Valentine, to residents of the town of Simsbury and to anyone else who would like to attend on Saturday evening, May 17th in Eno Hall. We have submitted our request for the use of the hall and was given a rental fee of $750 for 4 hours from 6 to 10 p.m. in the evening. I'm here tonight to ask you to waive this fee. The purpose of the event is to raise funds for our charity, the Sunshine Kids. I have a handout here that I can provide you afterwards, but I have provided a handout in regards to the charity itself and to the charity's local involvement with Connecticut Children's Medical Center right here in Hartford. The Sunshine Kids, like the Make-A-Wish Foundation, provides children with cancer an opportunity to enjoy a trip, an event, or activity for their families that they would not be able to do without the sponsorship of this charity. Thousands of children from hospitals across the country have benefited from the Foundation's programs and events. These programs are free to children and their families. Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, formerly Prudential Real Estate, adopted the Sunshine Kids Foundation as our company charity in 2002. Since then, we have raised more than $1.2 million through charity events and donations. We will have a $500 expense that night to pay the actress who will perform Shirley Valentine, and we would like to host a liquor-free reception at the intermission. Other than these two expenses, we would like to donate the balance of the ticket sales to the Sunshine Kids. With your help tonight, we will be able to achieve this goal. Thank you once again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Next item is to approve the fee schedule for the Simsbury Farms Golf Course and aquatic facilities. Jerry, why don't you walk through what the Parks and Rec Commission would like the board to do?
Thank you. As outlined in my submission at their January 23rd meeting, the Culture, Parks, and Recreation Commission addressed the fee schedules for both the Simsbury Farms Golf Course and the aquatic facilities. Prior to this recommendation, they, as they do every year, reviewed fee surveys of area public municipal facilities, as well as reviewing past year's usage and facility maintenance costs for those areas. They also asked the Simsbury Farms Complex Committee to review the schedules and forward their recommendations to the Commission. The Complex Committee was unable to meet, so those recommendations and the fee schedules were sent to them electronically, and they sent their comments on to the Commission for that January 23rd meeting. I'll say that in looking at the golf fees, the increase in the maintenance budget was discussed, and it was felt that those increases were needed to meet the proposed increase in the upcoming budget. Looked at the surveys from other courses, and also look at the opportunity that we give our residents to buy. Actually, buy at last year's rates. We offer a preseason special that gives our season pass holders the opportunity to buy it at the previous year's rate. About 60 to 70% take advantage of that. So there were a number of things that were discussed. I think in the end they felt that the fees that we offer good value. And given the recent improvements to the course and the money that's been invested and the upgrades that we've made, I think the Commission felt strongly that the increases were justified.
Questions?
I have just one quick question, and
it could just be because I haven't seen the whole picture, but aren't there other activities at the farms that charge fees, like the camps, the rinks, tennis, that there aren't any fees attached to that?
Well, there are, but typically
They're not
they're
included
taken
in
up at
this?
different times of the year.
Oh,
The
okay.
facility fees, like for the rink, will come to you probably at the end of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
The pools you get now. Camps we're revamping right now, and so they're, our programs we kind of look at on the fly. In a lot of cases, we do a lot of them contractually with outside vendors. So we have a contractual arrangement that's in place on those. But the facility fees do come, they come to you, just not all at once.
So swimming lessons and tennis lessons and all those other things are going to be a separate
Yes,
item?
that's correct.
Okay. I just
Other
wasn't
questions?
sure if that was all included.
So, sorry, so given the conversation we just had at the joint meeting the other day, should we be taking this up now, or should we let
Well,
that
I think
group
the
kinda
feeling was
look at it?
if they're approved under the condition or under the understanding that they could be modified by that committee.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what your, what your action will be.
I had the same question. I'll just follow up with Sean. I brought this forward, but I do think that since we have the subcommittee and since we do really need to get the farms in balance, I think that making these decisions in piecemeal is not really the way to go. I'd prefer to wait until the subcommittee has a chance to meet. We're appointing the members tonight. The complex committee didn't have a chance to say it. I just think it's worth, we're going to have a very difficult discussions and making choices when we get to the budget.
Right.
And I think we should wait.
That's fine.
Nancy?
Just, and bringing this back to, could we actually see some more information that does show some of those comparisons as well? I just think it would be helpful to see what some of the other folks are charging.
Yeah,
And-
I thought there was yeah, you will.
Okay.
Absolutely you will. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. In both cases, in both golf and aquatic.
And then just the comment here where it says the recommendation of the commission is attached, it'll also be reviewed by the Simsbury Revenue Fund Committee, so they haven't seen it yet either to make
Right.
some sort of a recommendation.
We're hoping to have their initial meeting this Wednesday at 5 o'clock. We'll be getting them all the, as much information as we can then, and we hope to try and meet, pretty regularly with them and get as much as we can in a very, very expeditiously. We want to move that along with them
Well,
and
that-
give them everything they need to.
That goes to my last question, and that is then when do you need to have this in order, you talked about pre-sales, and that's this year's rates.
Well,
when
that's
do
the
you need
thing. Yeah,
to-
we're a little concerned just as far as the, we'd like to think the golf course may open, some point.
Someday.
One day.
Snow bunkers, not sand
I'd love to
bunkers.
have it be next week,
We're
but
always ever the optimists,
Yeah.
but we would like to have that out. I mean, usually we try and get that together in, early to mid-March. And, again, for the fact that we've had that preseason, special in place that people are able to take advantage of, for the season pass holders, it's taken care of. But we do like to, from mid-March to late March, we like to have everything in place, so.
okay.
Is there a motion to adopt the fees? Anyone?
We're just gonna hang tight, right? You want a motion to table
If
instead?
someone
Say motion to table.
I'll take anything.
I'll move to table the fees
Going
until we
once.
have time for further consideration.
Motion to table, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we'll have this back as quickly as possible
good.
after the committee
Thank
takes a
you.
look at it. Thank you, Jerry. Next item is to approve a 6-month moratorium for the Simsbury Board of Selectmen naming rights. I will ask Mike to comment his submission. So, Mike.
Sure. I'll start out by saying, if I did this wrong, guys, help me. But I really think it's appropriate after our last meeting that we table or put in a moratorium to table the naming rights policy. And as I understand it, it is solely for the Board of Selectmen side of stuff, not the Board of Ed. They have their own policies.
But it does come before the Board of Selectmen. So if
We'll
we're,
come back to them.
Table
yeah,
it.
so if we put a moratorium in place, then we would,
For everything.
Have a moratorium on the Board of Ed.
Okay, but I do think it's appropriate that we take time to catch our breath and review this and make some minor changes or some changes and move forward from there.
okay. Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
If we do this, would we need a subcommittee, a group of us, or would we all discuss? I'm just want to know what happens during the moratorium.
Well, I think Mike's request is to do a subcommittee.
To do a subcommittee, a couple of us, again, I want to make sure that it's legal and it's appropriate, but I think it's not productive to have all of us meet. On the other hand, it should be enough of us so that we have a consensus and concerns, and we can still do a lot of it by email, very frankly.
No,
No, you can't do it by email.
No, we
That's
can't?
a
Okay.
violation of FOIA.
Well, thank you for correcting me on that.
Might that actually also include Board of Ed? Since we're talking about the fact that that does impact some of this, but, or does it have
It's
to come
really
to
a
us
Board of
anyway?
Selectmen
So
policy.
that's fine,
So, I mean,
yeah.
we've referred it before, so. Is there a motion to table?
Motion to approve the moratorium?
Yes.
I'll-
I mean, moratorium to table the naming rights.
Yeah, I move that we approve the suggested 6-month moratorium.
I'll second that.
I have a question.
Lisa?
Why 6 months?
It's long enough, but not so quick that we're rushing in the middle of our budget to trying to get all this stuff done. I see the budget taking a couple of months, and I wanted to give us more than enough time to get this done.
That's a quarter of our term.
Very good.
That's pretty
Right.
quick. That's pretty quick for us.
You're ready for the budget stuff, I can see. Yes.
I guess I would say my only concern is this, 4 members of this board, this was a best practice review by council, it was reviewed by town staff. I'm certainly open to improvements and suggestions. I don't see the need to go 6 months to do that. You can Google naming rights policies and you come up with best practices. You can see what other towns are doing, and if there's something you want to do, I'd certainly be open to hearing it. I'm not sure it makes sense.
Excuse me. There are people speaking.
I'm not sure it makes sense to take 6 months to do this, but especially since we've done it once, but you guys clearly have the votes, and if that's what you want to do, we can do that.
Yeah, I just would comment, I agree with Lisa. I think, 4 of us had an opportunity to look at it, to talk about it. I know 2 members are new, and I certainly have a lot of respect for any changes that want to be brought forward. I haven't heard any changes. Now it's been on our agenda. It was on our agenda at least 3 times when we adopted the policy. It's back on our agenda. I still haven't heard one thing changing the policy. I'm comfortable with the policy in that there is a process, the public gets notice of it. We sometimes vote no, and that's our job, so if the recommendation isn't what the town wants, we can do that. I disagreed with the last vote. I thought that having a plaque with Tom West's name at Simsbury Farms was appropriate, so I'm comfortable that the policy worked because they brought forward a request that went through the Parks and Rec Commission, so if the Complex Committee didn't want it, they could have voted no. Then it went to Parks and Rec. If they didn't want it, they could have voted no. So there were many opportunities for the public to comment and for it to be turned down. So it got to us only after it had gone through those hoops. We're spending a lot of time on it. I think I agree with Lisa, 6 months when we have budgets and more things. I think it's a lot of other big issues we need to deal with. And I do think that there are a number of pending gifts that 6 months could be a problem. Under the moratorium, you couldn't name a bench after somebody because it would preclude us from even doing that. So, I'm more than open to different, changes. I'm more than happy to
How
hear.
much time do you think?
I'd like to hear what the problem is with the policy. Does anybody,
I'll
did
jump right out
anybody
there.
say what the problem is?
I think we ought to take buildings and streets out of the policy, quite honestly. I don't think after...
We should never name a building after someone?
No, quite honestly, I don't. After looking back at it, and yes, I did vote for the policy in the first place,
Yes.
Mary, but in having a chance to reflect on it and having a couple applications, and again, I wasn't here for the Gallagher vote, and I would have voted no for that as well. I think buildings and streets ought to come out, quite honestly.
Okay, well,
For
I
the same
appreciate
reason, I
that.
have nothing against Jim Gallagher, great guy. My mother served with the man, but
Well, let's not make it personal. Those votes.
It's not, and
No,
it's not-
I
it's
think-
not meant to be personal.
Yeah, no,
That's
and
my
I said,
point.
there's no reason to make it personal. I think we're all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, no, we
We're
are.
all trying to say,
So-
we have a policy in place. I feel very strongly we didn't have a policy in place. So, we had things named after people without any of us knowing, quite frankly. So I don't know, different
Absolutely.
boards. So
You're
I
right.
am really proud that the board looked at it a number of times. We did do best practices. We had town attorney look at it. It's back before us. We had a couple applications of it.
Yep.
Folks may want to tweak it. I'm all for that. But a 6 months moratorium, I think, is overreaching. And, a subcommittee is overreaching, in my opinion. If there's things that people want to change, bring them back to the board and let's discuss them. But I certainly respect that some people didn't have an opportunity to think about it before, but 4 of us did, and this was the best we could come up with at the time. So I just think we're just overreacting.
So would folks be more comfortable, I mean, again, I raised the issue, I don't know how other feel, is we've put a moratorium on buildings and streets specifically, but leave the rest of the policy in place. Can we do that?
I won't do that because I think that if we don't have a policy on naming buildings, if something does come forward, the Board of Ed got a very large donation, whether, I don't know what they're naming and what they're considering. So, I think we are elected to make the tough decisions. And if people feel really strongly that they want to name something after someone, then they should go through the process, come to the Board of Selectmen, and maybe we'll vote yes and maybe we'll vote no. And maybe it will be uncomfortable to vote no, but that's our job. So I'm comfortable having a policy in place and sometimes voting yes, sometimes voting no, as long as we can articulate to the residents why we voted the way we did. So, I'm comfortable with it the way it is. If the board wants to vote tonight to take buildings and streets off, then people can vote to do that.
Just my suggestion, I don't know how other people feel about that, but.
I, as a person that put this forward, I'm fine if we want to shorten the time frame some. I don't think it should be less than 3 months, because I'm the newbie here. I'm really concerned about getting into this budget and all the stuff that I feel we have to do our job right, and I know everybody wants to do that. I don't want to rush this through, and I also don't want to be having meetings till 11 o'clock at night and then try to do my day job. So I'm fine if the group wants to shorten it to 3 months and bring our things into our Board of Selectmen meeting. If that's the concept that people want to go with, I'm fine with that change.
Further discussion?
I would support that. I would support 3 months, and, if we can expedite it more swiftly and quickly than that, we resolve it more quickly than that, then that's fantastic. But I do think it requires a look, and, we were reviewing an application at the time we were talking about the policy, but to my vote, that application was here. So I don't think it was a time to discuss the change to the policy. It was a time to review the application. So I would support a 3-month moratorium.
Are there any applications pending that you know of?
That we have a number of people there are discussions in the works right now with a number of departments to name things after people, everything from benches to rooms. So, there are things in pending.
But is there a formal application? I don't want to take anybody's application and stall it, but if there's.
There's no way for me. I don't have any application before me.
Okay.
Is there discussion? Yes.
Yeah.
So could this discourage those contributions? Yes. But, that's, if the board's not comfortable going forward, then the board's not comfortable going forward.
The Board of Ed did receive a sizable donation. They are going to make a decision what to do with that. I think it does not have to come to us.
It has to come to us as a referral,
Referral.
but we don't get the final say. But under our policy, we do have, it comes to us so that the public, again, can be on notice of what the Board of Ed is doing, because sometimes people don't follow different meetings.
So with the
it's just
moratorium, we could not even hear the referral.
I believe the policy requires the Board of Ed to have a public hearing.
Yes, but it comes back to this board. Right.
So if we pass the moratorium, people can still do benches and other things, because that's not in the policy, right? So we're talking about town-owned buildings, auditoriums and theaters, gymnasiums, libraries, gardens and walks, streets, athletic fields, facilities, concessions, and locker rooms. So we're talking about mostly structure and streets, so people can still donate a bench if they want to.
Right.
But we have we've had any sizable gift come to the board for acceptance.
And we can also vote to remove the moratorium if we so choose to, right?
It's not I'm not supporting it, so I'm not, I would just advise you that if you have a moratorium, you can't undo a moratorium. The whole purpose of a moratorium is that you don't act.
Okay.
If you're
But
going
if
to
we
flip-flop.
changed the policy, voted on it, approved it, in approving it, we could remove the vote to
whatever you
dissolve the
want.
moratorium.
You could do whatever you want.
Right, okay.
All right, we have a motion on the table for 6
So
months.
I'm in that motion to 3 months.
Okay.
I'll amend my second then.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any no?
No.
The moratorium is in place. Thank you. Next item is to appoint Joe Mancini as Director of Finance and Treasurer. We're really thrilled that our first, as I reported earlier, our first pick and was approved and was accepted. Joe Mancini has already been before the Board of Finance, and he hasn't even started work yet, so he comes to us from the city of West Haven. He also has experience at Sikorsky Aircraft for UTC, and he has a specialist performance and analysis background. He has a degree from Albertus Magnus, and an MBA from the University of Phoenix, and a BS in accounting from Ithaca College. And I want to thank Lisa Hebner and Sean Yaskin from our board, who gave us a lot of their time and expertise in interviewing candidates. So we have to make a motion to approve Joe Mancini as our finance director.
I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well done, guys.
Next item is to approve the Simsbury Farm Subcommittee. We need 2 members from the Board of Selectmen. I want to thank Mike Payne and Sean Askham for volunteering, twist their arms, for serving on the committee. So I would ask that we appoint all of the members of those as well. We did get other names, David Bush and Jerry Wetchen from Parks and Rec, Peter Askham and Nick Mason representing the Board of Finance, and as I said, Sean and Mike will represent the Board of Selectmen. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I can't just vote against one of those people.
No, can't vote against your own nominee.
You're killing me, man.
Guess which one it'd be.
Next item, the Community for Care Committee. Lisa Hebner is coordinating a meeting for tomorrow, so we don't have to act on that tonight. So there's no action for that tonight. Next item is to approve the resignation of Denise Alfeld from the Historic District Commission. It says effective June 1st, but it would be effective as of our acceptance. We can't accept retroactively. So can I have a motion to accept?
Move that effective today.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Just a clarification, I know the Historic District Commission is having quorum problems, as was mentioned earlier. It's incumbent to fill those vacancies as soon as possible, or that board's going to have some real problems, and I know Sean is here, who chairs the town committee for the Republicans, so if you could fill that as soon as possible, that would be
If
great.
you permit me 2 seconds, Denise was a resident, so we now need another resident
Right.
in order to comply with the statute, which is why it's so hard to find people to serve on this committee, because there's a residency requirement. So
There is.
if there are folks that live in the district that want to serve, please call somebody, call Mary, call myself.
Yeah, because
we'll
that's
get you in
why I
there.
want to publicly announce it, because we really are running into quorum problems.
It's
And
very difficult to find
frustrating for
people.
the applicants and frustrating for staff, so let's get on with.
This is the
making
hardest
those
commission I've
I know.
encountered so far to
I
find
know.
people for.
I know, I appreciate
And
it.
get them to run for these seats
I
easier than
know.
this one. It just seems crazy.
Not after tonight. The next item is Secretary of State notification of number of electors and number of polling places. I just want to make sure that the board has a copy of that. That was a form that was sent to the Secretary of State's office. No action is necessary on that. Next item is a special meeting of February 12th, acceptance of the special meeting minutes.
I'll move to accept.
Thank you. Any questions, corrections, changes?
I had a couple. On page 3, I think Father Michael White is
Yeah, spelled wrong. Yes,
Spelled
I got
wrong.
that.
Y, not an I.
Yes. And then on page 6 of 7, it said at the bottom of the page, Ms. Hebner said she, Ms. Glassman, a representative of Hampton, attended a Yukon Water Conference about the MDC proposal. It was not about the MDC proposal, so if you could strike that, please.
Thank you. Page 1 in the, under public hearing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 33 Canal Street. Canal, not Knoll.
No, I was wondering about that.
Tribute to Shannon.
Any other corrections, changes? Okay. Did I get a motion, Kathy?
You did, that was me.
Thank you. Will you accept those corrections?
Absolutely.
I do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any subcommittee or liaison reports?
I have one. Lisa. I just wanted to say we had a very successful senior citizen night at the high school tonight. It was senior citizen basketball night. As you know, we're doing this now half a decade. This is going, and it's a result of senior citizen outreach project between the town and the Board of Ed to sort of make our schools be not just for the kids, but for our community. We open it up, and the seniors use their VIP passes to attend a pizza dinner that is attended also by students. So it's intergenerational. Students and seniors interact, and then they use their VIP passes to attend a game. And tonight, Simsbury High School is playing Farmington. It is a tremendous event. Everybody's wearing red, white, and blue to support Simsbury. So while we're in here, we're thinking of you, and go team. I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, can I get a motion to go into executive session to discuss 2 items? The first is Simsbury Police Retirement Plan and Retirement Plan Subcommittee's recommendations and the analysis of our responses to the RFP seeking a consolidated healthcare vendor.
Move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned to executive session. Thank you.